Ready to go? Okay. Firstly, I apologise for the confusion with times. Obviously, we had a bit of a mix-up, so my apologies for that. But thanks for coming to this training session today. My name's Grant Fernando, and I'm the Quality Assurance Manager at iCom. My role there is wide and varied. I look after the systems group or the technical side of the company, as well as the service department, and keep track and make sure that all the quality control systems are in place to maintain the quality of the product. So we'll be going through a brief overview of all the product today, and I think one of the main focuses is going to be on the IP100, which I will get to. And during the presentation, I will be probably reinforcing the quality of the iCom product. That's a fairly significant selling point, and I'll give you quite a bit of information on what the benefits of the iCom product are. So without any further ado, I'll get on with the PowerPoint and presentation. All right, so iCom is if you don't know, is a Japanese-owned company. All the product, all the actual subscriber units, the radios, are made in Japan. Okay, we've been in business for about 50 years now, and we have 2 factories in Japan. We also have all the ISO accreditation, and all of our radios are built to military standard, so very, very tough, very, very robust. We have 2 factories that we operate in. We have the Kinakawa factory and the Arita factory. At the moment, the Arita factory is running at 100% capacity, and I think the Kinakawa, the last time I checked, it was running at about 30% capacity. But all the product is actually made in Japan, which I think is a pretty interesting point, because obviously a lot of products now are made in China, but because they've got the processes down to the point that they can actually still manufacture the product in Japan and still keep the quality and the I guess the pricing. So iCom's set up around the world. We have our office in Clayton, and we have subsidiaries dotted around the world. On top of those subsidiaries, we also have distributors, which are in a lot of the other countries. We've got distributors in China, etc. So we are a global company, and the iCom product is certainly well known throughout the world. The founding of iCom was based on our amateur product, and it's developed from there into pretty much everything in radio. So as you'll see when I go through the slides, we actually pretty much do everything in two-way radio. Just to give you an idea, this is a little screenshot of the factory. This may need a little bit of updating, but it's still around about 1,097 employees worldwide. We have offices worldwide. We have 8 assembly lines in that first factory that I was talking about, and we manufacture a product every 16 seconds. The production capacity is 110,000 units per month. The interesting thing is the technologies and the equipment that they've now brought into the factory means we have many, many categories of product. Too large to even for me to go through today. But we can actually change over from one category, so we could be making, say, the IP100, and we can change that production line over within a 5-minute period to, say, an amateur rig construction. So it's very, very precise as to the procedures that they've got down, so that we can actually manufacture the product on almost a need-by basis. We don't necessarily have to stock a lot of product, because we can actually manufacture it as it's needed. It's one of the key things with iCom and the way they're set up. Okay, so in Australia, we've been here since 1982. This is a picture of our factory in Clayton. And we have fully factory trained technicians, so the service department, we have factory trained technicians. All the servicing of the product is done in-house at component level. So it's not board change, we still repair to component level. Even the microscopic, minuscule little components, very seldom do we actually do board replacement. So the guys that we've got are very, very knowledgeable on all of the products. And we're broken up into our sales department, systems department, administration, service department, customer service, marketing and warehouse. That's pretty straightforward. All right, so just to give you an idea of what iCom actually covers in the way of two-way radio. Airband radio, we're a major supplier of airband radios. We will have a new fleet of airband radios coming out early in the new year. We do amateur and HF. LMR, which is land mobile radio or commercial radio. So we cover the whole gamut of commercial radio. Marine radio, we do a very large range of marine radio. We now do network radio, which is what I'll be talking about today as well. A large range of receivers, both rigs and portable units, and obviously CB-based or CB radios, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail. Okay, so CB radio is citizen band radio. Basically, it's license free. Currently, we have 80 channels. There are a couple of channels that aren't used, but in the most, you've got up to 80 channels. We have some repeater channels within that 80 channel group for CB repeaters that are set up, and we also have a couple of channels that are allocated for emergency. But basically it's license free, so anyone can buy them, four-wheel drivers, campers, hunters, you name it, and can talk to each other using the CB radios. Okay, the one I'll talk to today is the current or new release, which is the IC41 Pro, which is here on the stand. Just to give you a little bit of background with the CB radios now, iCom don't actually make a CB radio as such, okay? All the CB radios are commercial radios that have been rejigged in the firmware and software to perform as a CB radio. So they're exactly the same quality, mil spec and standard that our commercial radios are built to. So from a CB point of view, they're not a specifically designed CB radio. Okay, they are a commercial grade product that gives you CB functionality. And what that also means is that you have access to all the commercial grade accessories for that product. So it makes it a very, very strong, very, very reliable product to use. It is slightly higher priced, I guess, than some of the other CB radios that are out there, but that's the reason for it. It's the absolute quality. It's built to mil spec. You can drop these on the ground, you can run them over and they'll perform like a trooper. And they'll pretty well last you a lifetime. So they're extremely reliable and robust. So it's built to mil spec. We have waterproof and dustproof IP67 rating, 18 hours of operating time, built-in scrambler. This particular model, if it's got power onto it, I'm not sure if it has. No, it's been turned off. Does have a channel announcement, so as you turn through the channels, it'll announce the channel 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And it also is going to come, or does come, with a 5-year warranty. Because we know the reliability of the product, it's not a long stretch to offer a 5-year warranty on it. So that's going to be released very soon, if not already. Okay, I don't have a unit here to show you, but the 400 Pro is the CB version of a mobile radio. As you can see, there is a video actually that we can show you, I don't have it, but of the four-wheel drive running over the radio. It's a full die-cast housing, so it acts as a solid heat sink, the casing. The other very important thing with this radio is that because you can actually program commercial channels into it, with CB you can only operate 5 watts maximum. Okay, that's the legal allowable power. If you have a commercial license, it is possible to program these with a commercial channel, and quite often you're allowed to run the commercial channels at 25 watts. So basically you've got a 5 watt CB radio that's capable of doing 25 watts. So from a PA or a power amplifier point of view, you're only using it at quarter of its capacity. So the chances of damaging the PA in any real way would be very, very slim. So again, that's another reason of its ruggedness. And this particular product has been selling for many, many years. It's our flagship mobile radio, rock solid. Okay, that is being superseded shortly by the 410. Very much the same, just a bit more stylish design and a few extra features, but exactly the same functionality. Okay, the 450, which again I don't have a sample of, but this is the will supersede the IC440, which we're currently selling, or 440N. The advantages of this, again, it's a CB radio that's very robust. What we have done in this particular model now is we've added a noise cancelling microphone, so that just enhances the quality of the audio. If you're getting poor quality audio, you can actually enable the noise cancelling properties of the microphone to give you much clearer reception. Okay, because it's a control head version system, the main unit can be tucked away, particularly if you've got limited resources. You can't DIN mount this or mount that on a panel in the car, because a lot of the cars don't have a lot of real estate anymore. You can tuck the box away, and there's an extension cable that can fit to this, so you basically just got a microphone taking up your real estate in the car. So that's obviously a big plus if you're limited for room, but you've got all the functionality through the controller mic, and it has very, very good audio quality for a small microphone. But again, it's built with that mil-spec standard, and quite a good sounding product. The great thing with this one is if you're using it in, say, a situation with trucks or tractors or something like that, where they're not using 12 volts, where they're using 24 volts, it actually has an automatic detection, so you can actually run it off either 24 or 12 volts. Okay. In some other cases, like the 400 Pro, it only runs on 12 volts, so you'd need to have if you've got a 24 volt system, you need to have a step down system to feed the 12 volts back into it. And again, it does your standard 80 channels, CB channels. Okay, now from a marine point of view, we do have quite a few marine radios, but this is the latest one which we are releasing. This is the ICM25 Euro. So basically this particular radio is our radio that will float and flash. So what that means is if you drop it in the water, it'll actually float speaker side up, so that if it's still receiving any communications, you can continue to hear it, and it will flash, and you can actually set it off, or it'll flash automatically, so that if it's dark or at night, you can retrieve it. We were the first to bring out that style of radio. Obviously there's others now, but this is the next generation. This also allows you for, I guess, in situations where we've had life-saving organisations using these, they actually prefer to have a speaker microphone. So this particular model allows you to have a speaker microphone capability, okay, and it'll still remain waterproof as long as you're using the correct microphone with it. The other great thing with this now is it has a USB or micro USB charging slot. So you can pretty well charge it with any micro USB cable. Means you don't necessarily have to have one of the specific power adapters to be used with it.
So how does the flashing work when it's in contact?
It actually senses the water, yeah. So it's got two sensors on the back of it. So as soon as it hits the water, it forms a short, if you like, and effectively that triggers it. It's quite unique. It's quite a good little feature, and the great thing is it does stay upright so that you can still hear any comms that may be coming out through the radio. We have a very large range of marine radios. This is just one of them. We have the mobile sort of marine radios that you can fit into the boats, etc., that have built-in GPS. There's DSC functionality, which I won't go into today, but yeah, we've got quite a big range, so this is just one of many. The majority of our radios, marine handheld radios now, I think you'll find will be floating and flashing. They're also now developing, if you are familiar with our radios at all, the older radios had a reasonably complex menu structure to sort of go through. You had to go through different levels to get to certain areas. They've sort of customised that a little bit, and we're becoming a little bit more consistent throughout all the models now, where the menu structure is very simple and easy to use. So they're constantly developing it. This is also fully sealed, so you don't have access to the battery. You'd have to remove the screws and undo the cover. So it's a fully sealed unit.
The colour options refer to the flashing light?
No, the colour options actually refer to, it's hard to see here, there's a little stripe down the side there. That's a sort of dark grey. There's a white or a pearl, and there's a blue. Now, I don't know if Jason knows, but are we going to be stocking all three colours? Okay. Yeah, so there'll be like a pearl white colour, there'll be a blue, and there'll be this grey available. Function of the radio doesn't change, it's purely cosmetic. So that's just a very quick overview of, I guess, some of the products that you guys would be selling. Obviously we've got more information. I'll leave my card, and if anyone wants further technical or sales information, feel free to contact myself or Jason. What I'd like to do now is talk about the IP100, and basically what the IP100 is our radio that works over wireless LAN. So basically it's a Wi-Fi radio. So the theory behind this, or the concept behind this, is that in-building coverage with traditional radio can sometimes be very difficult, particularly with the materials and building materials and just the general layout of companies nowadays. So it can be quite expensive to get blanket coverage, and in most cases you won't get blanket coverage with traditional RF. So the idea of the Wi-Fi radio is most businesses, most companies will have Wi-Fi. Generally Wi-Fi is blanket coverage, not always, but in most cases, so a hotel, warehousing, you name it, office building. So you can actually provide, for very low cost, a two-way radio communication system that will give the blanket coverage using existing infrastructure. So there's no extra cost. You don't have to put a repeater in, or you don't have to put leaky feeder cabling or go to major expense to get the comms that you need. And effectively all it is one box that you connect to your network, and the radios will talk to the access points within the building, and there's your comms. So it's an initial outlay, there's no licensing for channels, so it's license free. It works on 2.4 gig and 5 gig, and it'll roam seamlessly between the two. So it's a very, very effective communication system in an environment particularly where traditional RF struggles. And to just give you a little bit of an idea of how we can utilise the system, I'm just going to give you a very quick case study on our sponsorship with the Nissan V8 supercars. So a couple of years ago, actually 3 years ago now, we went into sponsorship with the Nissan team, and basically what we were supplying them was traditional radio. So they had repeaters, I think they had 4 repeaters, 100 traditional VHF handsets, which they would use in the pits for communications. And that was fine. We had to set up some fairly complex scans so that you'd be able to monitor the car and the crew and various things, and that was quite complicated. And that was quite successful for the first 2 years. During that time they learnt that we had an IP product, and they were very keen to want to be one of the first teams to use a different sort of technology in the pits, because they could see the advantages of using that technology. And they approached us and said, look, we'd like to use the IP100 as our pit communications. So we put together a package and a system to allow them to do that, which I'll go through shortly. So effectively what that means is we've set up a standalone network, so it's a closed network just for the IP100. They have 4 cars in the Nissan team, and they have about 100 radios. Now, what the engineers do with the radio system is they carry 4 IP100s, which all cable into a single cable that goes into a headset. and they have 4 PTTs and they have 4 speakers. So what they actually do is they listen to 2 cars, the crew and the race control, and they have to be able to talk to the 2 cars and the crew. But what that meant was, by using the IP100, instead of using scans where you can miss a call or it doesn't scan the call properly, they've got direct comms with all 4 of the areas they need to have at all times. Okay, so that means a lot in the pits. What it also means is that the audio quality that they're getting, even though our digital system or our digital platform with what we call IDAS, which is iCom's digital platform, even though the audio of that is an improvement on analog, because this uses your traditional VoIP sort of codec, your G711 micro-law codec, it's a telephony quality codec, so you get very good frequency response, so the audio quality is exceptional. So for them, they've never had such good audio quality in the pits. So it's made some massive changes for them. I've pretty well discussed those things, so I'll skip those for a minute. The other issue that we had was that sorted out the pit comms, but with the broadcasting rights, the car still has to use traditional radio. So the car has to use traditional radio because they've got to rebroadcast the audio for the public. So we had to somehow integrate the digital platform, which is NXDN that we're using in the car, back into the IP100 system. Otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So what we did was, we have another box which is called the VPG3, and that's a radio over IP box, but it also forms what we call an audio bridge. Okay, so effectively what we've got, and I'll give you an example here. So we've got our Wi-Fi radios here, so the guys are wearing the Wi-Fi radios. I'm the car. When I talk, it goes through a repeater and talks to this mobile radio here, or it's received by that. We feed the audio out of that into the audio bridge, and then that is fed into the controller for the IP100 system via IP. So effectively what that meant is I can talk traditional radio to the IP100, and the IP100 can talk back to traditional radio. Okay, so we can integrate, using that secondary box, the VPG3, we can integrate audio, we can integrate SIP connectivity, we can integrate PSTN, which is just a standard old-fashioned telephone system. We can integrate it to a PABX, we can integrate it to an app on a phone. So it adds another layer of what we're capable of doing with this type of system.
That latency would be what, half a second? Something like?
It's around about it's probably about probably about 200-300 milliseconds. For them, that's not an issue. The other thing that they do, or the other thing that, I'll give you a few features of the product. The IP100 has approximately about 20-hour battery life with the battery that's fitted. Because it's very, very low output power. It's only 10 milliwatts output power, so it's very, very low power. It's waterproof, okay, as long as we keep this microphone cover sealed. It has IP6 waterproof rating, which is 1 metre for 30 minutes. The other really interesting feature it has, and this is where Nissan are actually utilising this with their engineers, is that if we connect a headset to the system, we can actually run full duplex communication, so it's total hands-free communications. Okay, so in a situation, or in an OH&S situation, a safety situation where you have to use both your hands but you still need to communicate, it's not Vox operated, it is actually full duplex. Okay, so that means that they have their hands free if they need to be doing something and can still communicate at the same time. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea of, again, the setup that we've got. Now with Nissan, because the racetrack is very, very flooded with mobile phones, and they've got 20 or 30 race teams, they've all got their own IP systems, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of traffic. What we had to do is we had to ensure that this system was going to operate rock solid and not fail, because it's critical comms as far as they're concerned in the pits. they have been, I must preface that, they have been using the system for, well, every race this year, and it hasn't missed a beat. It's been rock solid, so that's a very positive thing. So basically we've got a digital radio in the car which talks to the repeaters that the race control provide, and they retransmit to our mobile radios. So we've got car 1, car 2 and race control. That's monitoring race control. It's only a received channel, we don't have to transmit, and these two will be transmit only for the engineers so they can talk back to the cars. So that goes into our VEPG3 audio bridge feed into the controller via IP. So that goes through our network. Wi-Fi access points, what we've done is we've gone with very, very expensive smart access points. And on top of that, we've added another layer. We've got an access point controller, which is like a management system. So combined with those two things, with all the traffic and everything that's coming in, it can actually manage all of that, and it can tell it to change channels when it needs to. So that way we're trying to effectively stop any interference or crashes that are going to cause a problem with the system. And that's also just going through a PoE switch, which is just for the interconnection of all the access points and all the networking gear. So it's a fairly, it's a very new system. Nissan are the only team using this system at the moment. We've now got it to the point where they've almost at the end of the year. It has been rock solid. They are now looking at the possibility of running the console software. Exactly what they're going to do with that yet, I don't know, but that's something we need to work with them with, and that's what I'll just run you through in a moment and give you an idea of how that works. But just to give you an idea, it is hard to see, but this is the Nissan guys, this is their control panel, and just here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of the handsets. They all go up into a yoke cable, which then goes to their headset, so then they can do their communication. Now that's not unlike what they did with traditional radio. They still had multi-speaker, multi-button headsets. We did the same thing, but effectively we've eliminated the scan. They had 100 radios, so every race the frequencies would be changed, so every race they had to reprogram 100 radios. With this, the great thing is there's no programming. Once you've done the initial setup, you can go to every race, and like I did here, you can pull it out of a box, you can plug it in, and I've got a working radio system here with that one access point.
Sorry, so they could actually listen to all 4 radios?
They do. They literally do. If they've got race control, they've got both cars, and you can, yes, and you can actually hear all 4 of those and determine. I mean, they're very skilled at this because they've been doing this for a long time, and they've done that with traditional radio. The problem with traditional radio is that because we're running scans, they didn't have like one radio for each car, but they did have a couple of radios, but they would scan between cars. There's always that chance with a traditional radio and scanning, you either lose a bit or you don't get it at all, and there were the issues that they wanted to try and eliminate. So the easiest way to do that, because we can't run a scan in this sort of system, but because they're small and light, the radios they use are a bit bigger than that and a bit heavier than that, so even 2 of these don't even sort of make the weight of what they were using in the past. The other things you can do with this radio is the antennas. As you can see, I've got 2 with a longer antenna, and then I've got a little cap on these 2. If the signal's strong enough, if you're in a network where the signal's very strong, we can actually run an internal antenna. It will reduce the range slightly, but if that's not an issue because you've got strong enough signal, then you can eliminate the antenna. Otherwise, you can run it with the antenna.
It comes standard with the antenna?
Yeah, it comes with the antenna and the cap, and then it just depends on how it's programmed as to whether you use with or without. And that's determined by, I mean, look, it is a simple plug and play system, but having said that, I guess if you were looking at selling or a product like this, we'd want to know the layout, if you like, of where it's going to be installed, because there are certain things you want to make sure that the access points are going to be suitable, because obviously the system will only be as good as the network that you're currently running. So we need to technically make sure that everything's going to add up and it's going to give you the optimum performance. Okay, but it is as simple as I say, I take this out of the case, I plug it in, and away it goes. It's very, very simple system. So, reasonably dumb, for want of a better word. You do some IP address information, access point information and controller information. Once that's done, you don't touch the handsets again. All the programming of group calls, individual calls and all of those sorts of things are done in the actual controller, and then they're uploaded to all the handsets. So if Nissan need to add an extra talk group, they do that in the controller, and then when the handsets register, it all gets uploaded. So they don't physically have to do changes during the race to 100 or so handsets. So it's made the operations for the pit crew so much more efficient. And basically this is how they transport it. So they've got a big cabinet here, there's mirrored on the other side. All the engineer headsets and pit crew headsets are in here, and then all the handsets stay in charge there. So they close the cabinet up, roll it away, take it out for the next race, plug it in. There is another box, which isn't shown here, that has the IP100, the VPG3, which is our radio over IP box, and the mobile radios as well. But it is a simple matter of just rolling it out and away you go. So look, just to recap, these are the benefits of the IP100 system. License-free, over-the-air reprogramming. It does utilise, in most cases, the existing infrastructure. Very minimal installation required. Clear audio, 20-hour battery life. It'll roam between 2.4 and 5 gig. This particular access point that I have here is a dual band, so it's 2.4 and 5 gig. And it'll switch between the two, but you won't even pick that up when it does it. It allows you to have full duplex operation when you use a headset. It's IP7 rated, so 1 metre for 30 minutes. Has all the normal encryptions available and security protocols. So you've got the layer of security on the system, and then it's also dependent on how secure your network is that you're actually putting this onto. Okay. There's a remote console available, so that's an optional extra, and obviously they're very small and lightweight. Okay, so that's the benefits of the IP100. It's quite a revolutionary little product, and I'm very passionate about it because I can see many applications where this is a really good alternative to traditional radio.
Is there any cost in getting it added onto a PC? So you've got users with the radios, and then you've got, say, people on PCs with their own costs.
To get it onto the PC, you'd have to run it through the console software. Now the console software is on a per PC basis because it uses a dongle, which you can't see here, but I've got a dongle plugged into this because I'm going to show you the software in a moment. But you could do that. It would get expensive, but you could do that. Yeah. Okay, and that's it for that. I'll just now bring up the console software just so I can give you a general idea of what that looks like and how it works. Okay, so what we can do, we can actually set up multiple sites. So the other thing that we can do with this, because it's IP based, I could have this system here, and if I had a 4G modem VPN link from here, I could talk back to the office, or for that matter anywhere in the world. So I can link it very easily because it is that IP level. And we can do that two ways. I can actually, or I'll explain what we've got at back at the office. We have a handset, excuse me, that has a link to iCom Japan's network or IP100 system. So we're just a handset off their network through a VPN tunnel. Okay. Obviously, if we lose that link, we don't have the comms anymore. The other way we could do it is we could be a unit that can communicate on their system, but we could have a sub-controller at our location so that if we did lose the link, we've still got local comms. Okay, so there's many ways that we can adapt this to operate. But basically what this console software does is, this is really just an operator console software, I guess. So if you want to use it in that fashion, you can. All I've got here at the moment is some buttons set up. I've got unit ID 1, 2, 3 and 4, which represents the 4 handsets. I've got talk groups 1 and 2. Talk group will include the traditional radio, and I've got what's called an all call. So effectively what I can do from the computer, I can also have a speaker attached and a desktop microphone if I want to. Otherwise I can use the speaker and the mic of the computer. But if I do an all call, sorry if I can get that over there. So I select that all call and PTT it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, it's a bit loud. So I can actually, as an operator, contact any of the radios that are on my network. Just bear with me. I need to show you where the what this also allows us to do, it should be there somewhere, where is it, is we can actually map just give me 2 seconds, I'll just get that up on the screen so I can show you. Okay, there we go. My apologies for that. Okay. All right. So what this is actually showing us at the moment is it shows it as 2 access points, even though I've only got 1, but it is a dual band, so it splits them. And what it's telling me is 3 of my handsets are registered to the 2.4 gig for whatever reason, and 1 of them's registered to the 5 gig at the moment. It's just the way the signal levels are, and it's saying that this one's better off being registered at that one. But what that allows us to do is in this area here, I could overlay a map of, say, the building here, if you were using this system here, and then I can pinpoint where the access points are. So what I can do then is I can get a visual indication as to where somebody is according to where their radio is registered to which access point. So in a way it's like a GPS type thing, but it's only going to give you a general idea of their location. So if they're on that one there, you know that that's the access point that's over there in the corner of the building. You know that that person's in that general area. So for instance, if this was in a hotel, we could have all the floors listed there, and we could monitor where the housekeeping were. So instead of housekeeping having, say, go from this floor all the way down here to pick up whatever they need to pick up, we can see that there's somebody else near the storage area that could actually bring them that stuff up to the room and save them time, or whatever the case may be. So we can actually monitor what's going on there. The other thing that we can do with this software is we can do things like send a text message. So if, for instance, I just wanted to send a message and I want to send that to everybody as an all call, and I PTT it, it's hard to see it, but effectively what happens is, and you can have a look at these in a minute, on the bottom there it'll have hello. So I can send a text message, I can have pre-formatted text messages in the radios, so I can select one and I can either send that to an individual or I can send it to a whole group. Okay. The other thing I guess that it allows you to do is we can also monitor or maintain a call log. So what that will do is it gives me an indication of all the communications I've made today. So that's the text message I just sent then, hello. It tells me it was an all call, it tells me this one was an individual call, and gives me the date and the time that was made. That information is also stored in the handset, so I can actually go through and have a look at my call logs in the handset. Okay. As far as the other features, you can create an ID list, so I can have a list of all the IDs there that I can actually monitor. I can have pre-formatted messages, so please return to base or whatever. So if I selected that one, I can send that out to an individual. So I could send that out to Unit 1, and that would go out to Unit 1, which is here, and it's got the message there, please return to base. So I can have pre-formatted messages on the system. Again, as far as the audio quality is concerned, 1, 2, 3. It's a bit loud. So I'll just hand these out just so that you can have a feel and you can pass them along and sort of get an idea of what they're like.
So when you're sort of setting up a warehouse or something, we've got to go to this IT system. Do you have a software where you sort of coverage?
Yeah, what?
So how do you know it's going to be?
Look, there is software available. There are tools that you can do that with. To be honest with you, in a lot of cases where we do have our IT guy that will assist with any installation and speak to the IT people of where it's being installed. Quite often what he will do is he's actually used his phone just to get a general idea. Some of the phones have the apps that can show you actual what sort of coverage is there, and that'll give him a general idea. In most cases, if it's something like warehousing, all of that coverage test and everything has pretty well been done because they need to make sure they've got the coverage in the first place. We would do that anyway, just to be sure. We also need to make sure, because with this system, the access points have to have a common SSID or a second SSID throughout for this network or this system. So we just need to make sure that the access points are suitable. If they're going to be using a large number of these handsets, we just need to make sure the access points are capable of having simultaneous hits at the same time, because different access points will have a different number of accessible links to it, or pings. So they're the sorts of things that we just need to make sure of first, that it's going to be suitable. Once that's done, it's purely a matter of putting the IP address of the network into this system, pretty much as simple as that. Setting up your individual and groups. You plug that in, switch it on, and away it goes. It's that simple.
Can you rename?
You can. I've only given them numbers. You can give them alpha tags, so you can put a name on there. So that could be John, Bob, Cindy, Mary, whatever, whatever. Okay, with the controller, make sure I'm pointing to the right one. The one on top is the controller. We have two versions of the controller. There's a 20-unit controller, which basically means it'll control 20 radios. And there's another layer, there's a 100-unit controller. So obviously that will allow you to use 100 handsets at the same time. So with the Nissan system, we've got 100-unit controllers. They actually use about 80 odd of the radios at any given time. So they're not using it to its maximum capacity. They can be stacked, so you could have 100 and then you can link or daisy chain a 20 and extend the capacity. That would be fairly large scale though. I think for this sort of system, you'd be hard pressed to find many areas where you're going to go beyond 100, unless you're doing something really specific or fancy with the system. So I think that covers most of what I wanted to show, but basically what will happen here too is while we're standing here, it literally, this handset could go, no, I don't like that 2.4 gig, and it'll just walk over to here. So you'll actually see it move. Or if I turn them off after about a minute, it'll refresh and then it'll show that it's not actually on the system. So you can get a definite idea at any time, and if you notice when you press that, that went green to show that it's a call, and it gives him a little bit of information here as well. Tells you what type of call.
Any cases where they hotspot the radio, so if they don't want to set up a VPN?
No, not that you couldn't necessarily do that. I'm not aware of anyone having done that, but that doesn't mean you couldn't.
So I'm just thinking of a rep Salesforce, if they've already got a mobile phone,
Yeah, I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure, and this is the great thing with the IP100 is that when we demonstrate it and show it to people, you get great questions like that we haven't either thought about or someone just hasn't sort of suggested it. So I'd have to check that, but I'm sure that it may be possible to do that. I think that's about it. So if you've got any questions on anything, shoot.
Sorry, I'll just ask one question.
Yeah, as many as you like.
A while ago I had a job where they were Intrinsically Safe or something like that.
Intrinsically Safe?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I rang you guys and you said, this is maybe an analog system where you actually have a CP system. You said you had one maybe coming in.
Yeah, we actually do have one available now. I don't think we've got them in stock yet. I don't have I might have it. No, I don't have a picture of it. Well, just shoot us an email or shoot Jason an email and we'll send you the information on it. But it's an IECEx rated radio, so it's actually extremely high on the level intrinsically safe. It's fully potted, which basically means it's sealed totally inside. If it fails, you throw it away basically. But it's a very high level of intrinsically safe. It'll work right up to the really serious sort of gas and requirements, and so we've got a NXTN version of that. It's a blue radio because the intrinsically safe are traditionally a blue in colour. It's the
Because I think this job might come later.
well, look, definitely get in touch with us. We'll supply you with the information because that way, if you know what's available, and we can give you some idea as to when we'll have them in stock. But yeah, definitely that's, at the moment these aren't. We are looking at the possibility of even getting these made intrinsically safe because they're such low power, they already meet the requirements. It's purely the battery that doesn't. Because intrinsically safe, you're only allowed 1 watt maximum. This is 10 milliwatts, so, and this is considered a LIPD device, so it's very low power. Yeah. All right, thank you.